Thank you for joining us today on this segment of Bellevue TV Visions. I am your host, Lauren Avenius. Uh, Please find us on Bellevue TV YouTube, as well as our Facebook live stream. We simulcast on both of those, so you can find them there. And all these shows are posted up there. Catch all our segments from the week. This week, I'm super excited. So this segment is focused on community and community building, something that is very important to me. I'm a child of 7, and so finding a group that I feel like I can run around in and cause trouble in and feel at home in everywhere I go is vital to me. And I'm really interested in the people who envision the world that they want to live in and create it for all of us to be able to participate in. So in previous segments, we've explored different ways that we build community. With Callie Kelsey, the idea of building community by creating space emotionally, right, through kindness. With Nathan Young of The New Narrative, we talked about how we create space in our imaginations, our collective imagination, through the stories that we tell. And today I'd like to talk with someone who creates a physical space that we fill and define as we go there, as we participate, a community that's truly co-created. So I have Matt Delarosa with me today, the owner of Ironsmith Coffee Roasters in Encinitas. They have another location, Mestizo in Carlsbad, at the Mill, if you want to check them there.
Yep.
So Matt has done something really interesting. So he's been in business for 5.5 years. And Coffee Roasters, Ironsmith, is more than just a place where you get your morning brew. It's really a gathering place, largely of North County creatives, but a gathering place for people in the community of all kinds. And in a community in Encinitas that is filled with coffee shops and bars. It has a really dedicated group of regulars who have developed relationships there, have started businesses there, have grown really in each of their own ways and thrived through the space that Ironsmith has formed. So I'm really curious in talking with Matt how that space came to be, what his intention is, and how he, as the owner of this space, has set the tone for that. So Matt, hi, welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
I,
Glad
I
to be here.
I'm so excited to talk with you. Matt is also one of my favorite people, extremely stoic, hardworking, and private. So this is a rare opportunity for us to kind of have like a live AMA with him.
Uh-huh.
Matt is also a new father of a little baby Archer who's 2 months old, which is another interesting conversation that we were just having about what it is to have a new baby during COVID, which again goes into community, right? Like what are our expectations? But before
Right.
we get into that, Matt, tell us a
Yes.
little bit about, you and I were just talking about your work ethic, about what makes you feel valued
Hmm.
and supported. Uh, let's start really basic, because I think you have a phenomenal story. So where did you grow up?
Okay.
Tell us about your parents.
I grew up in a suburban neighborhood of Los Angeles County called Walnut.
Oh, no,
And
that's great.
yeah, in the 80s and 90s, I was born in the mid 80s. Grew up there and spent, all my childhood and adolescence there. My parents still live in the same house. So it's all there. If I go back there, same house, same room, it's all there. So I feel very fortunate that I can say that. So I grew
That's,
up in Los Angeles. Yeah.
okay. And your parents, are they from LA?
They are now. No, they're originally from the Philippines. So I'm a first generation American here.
Wow.
They both came from the Philippines, I think in the mid 70s. Yeah, like early 70s, mid 70s. And they started a new life here. They met here though. They didn't know each other in the Philippines.
Wow.
So
Okay.
somehow that happened.
Is there a big Filipino community in Walnut?
Yes. Very it's predominantly mixed. I remember growing up it was predominantly I think it was more of like a white Caucasian neighborhood. I think it is all mixed up now. So yeah, it's a lot of Filipinos there now. Yeah.
Okay. So was that Like, did you feel a part of a Filipino community when you were growing up, or did it feel mixed? Like, what was
No,
that identity for
it
you?
felt
First
it
generation.
felt very. I like what's interesting is like growing up. My first language wasn't even English. I think I was speaking Tagalog, which is a dialect in the Philippines, and I grew up speaking Tagalog because I only know this because I used to watch old videos myself, and I would be speaking it like at a very early age. But from what I remember, even though I was born in the U.S., I remember being in like first or second grade, and I was in ESL, which is English as a second
Oh,
language,
really? Okay.
because because I had a hard time juggling both. I wasn't one of those talented bilingual kids. Like I was having trouble speaking English, and so I think I had some trouble early on that my parents probably recognized, like reading and writing. And so from that point forward, we switched over to just speaking English in the house. So it became a very American household. Um, I don't know if that was intentional for my parents in a way where like they wanted us to be American, but I grew up eating McDonald's, Taco Bell, like I grew up in a very American, like, I
Like
look
a
back and
very,
like,
very, very like relatable, super American
yeah,
suburban life,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I watch old, I watch, now there's a lot of shows on, that are, um, structured on like Asian sort of upbringings. And sometimes I'm like, it's hard for me to relate to that because I like that just wasn't how I was necessarily brought up. I grew up going to school. My parents worked. I grew up going to school, and all my friends were these American kids from all walks of life. But we
Yeah.
were all like American, and we watched football, basketball. Like, yeah, I grew up in a very, I don't know, it was the 80s and 90s. I watched GI Joe.
Which was one of the best cartoons on, for
It
sure.
was,
Is
yeah,
that why you
for sure.
joined the Marines? G.I. Joe?
That was a big part of it. No, all right. Do you want to know the? Do we want to get into that?
Yeah.
The
So,
main part? Because like, yeah, I went to.
so you grew up in LA, classic suburban middle class life. A lot of interesting dynamics, obviously, with ESL and immigrant parents that we can kind of talk
Yep.
through, work ethic, which tends to be highly characteristic of first generation immigrants. And obviously,
Yeah.
Filipinos are among one of the, not to get too into stats, but
Sure.
they tend to work more hours than other immigrant groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, we can talk about what that means to work hard and why maybe you're always at Ironsmith building that community. But you joined the Marines. How old were you? Tell us that story.
I was I was 16 when I signed up. Like when I was still in high school. So when I was deciding like this is what I'm gonna do, and
Do they
I mean I was born.
sign up at 16?
Yeah, as long as your parents were signing you off, like you're not like a legal adult yet. But I was born late in the year. I was born in October, and so I was that young kid in my grade class. So when I graduated high school, I was still 17.
Okay.
And so I graduated high school, and then 4 days after I graduated high school, I was in San Diego at boot camp. So I didn't skip a beat. I was like, I'm
Wow.
going. So I
Wow.
decided that pretty early, like when my senior year started of high school, I already knew, I'm going to the Marine Corps right after I graduate high school. Like I'm
Why
getting
was
this
that?
going. I think I just was ready to get my life started. I think I was ready to move on. I don't know if I put a lot of emphasis, or I don't know if I put a lot of priority in like social life. Whereas I know a lot of, I don't know, from what I can remember, it was almost 20 years ago that, after high school, a lot of people wanted to take that summer and whatever, live it up before
Right.
college starts. I was like, I'm getting this started like right after I graduated high school because I know I don't know if there was going to be anything good. Like I don't know if I was going to be up to anything good in that summer to move my life forward or progress. So
That's interesting. So one of the things I was saying as we were talking before is that like you have a tremendous amount of hustle, right? And so it doesn't at all surprise me that 16-year-old you was like counting down the days. As soon as I am an adult, I am going to be doing adult shit, and that's going to be like not messing around. I'm getting this going, and Marines obviously being like a great option to start off that life. As you're saying that though, I'm thinking about how, when I'm at Ironsmith, there's a work culture there. Everyone who's there,
Mhm.
who's hanging out is like, it's a place not where people are being social. It's like the
Right.
social happens because you're there. It's really a place that people are working. And I wonder how much of that tone is actually set by how hard you work, right? Like if we all walk in and we feel like this is a serious do business kind of place, as much as it's,
Uh,
you know, like a coffee shop, as much of as it's the place where
right.
hanging out and being warm and social, like you have such a great heart and you are so personable and loving and compassionate and like empathetic, but I never see you not working. I never see you taking a break. Like even when you're taking a break, it's really just because you're waiting on something, right? You're like, oh, I'm
Mm,
just waiting for this,
yeah.
and I'm going to move to the next thing. And as you're talking now,
Mhm.
I'm seeing your personality patterned in the dynamics at Ironsmith. So that would be interesting to kind of think about how much of that
So
is like you role
that
modeling
is
that,
interesting.
or how much of it is like you attracting that, you know, other people who are that way. Okay, so
Interesting.
you go into the Marine.
That's an interesting.
But
Yeah.
we'll explore that more, right? Like I really think there's something
Yeah.
big in, like, I don't want to call it law of attraction, though. You are from LA, so you should know all about laws of attraction and manifesting and vision.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do think there's something to people are attracted to and mirror what they respect and admire in someone else, right? And it brings
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you do the Marines. Did you do the standard 4 year?
Yep. I did. I did 5 years actually.
Oh, you re-upped.
Yeah, I did 5 years. Well, no. So the job that I ended up getting was attached to that job. The MOS was a 5 year contract. I think part of that was because not a lot of people were either interested in that job or
What job was it?
I think from what it's air command and control. I was like an air
Wow.
traffic control.
Highly technical.
Um, it was a technical job. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
technical job. I think that turnover was just, they just needed more people to stay in that job. So instead of just finding more people, they just made you stay in longer.
Well, and
Well,
also jobs
the
that are highly technical and skilled, you know, especially for where
right,
you're, they need people who are experienced. Like they
correct, and they need,
for turnover.
yeah, they need experience to stay in that job, unless turnover is just going to cause rookies to come in. Whatever, you can see where that goes. So 5 years, just an extra year. So I committed 5 years active duty, and then that was it. Yeah. I did my 5 years. But I think you were talking about influences and why people do certain things. I forgot to mention, it's funny to me. It's funny, but one of the biggest reasons why I joined the Marine Corps, I don't know if I know we said GI Joe and all that, but was a movie, like certain movies that influenced me in the
Tell me.
'90s.
Yeah.
So Will Smith,
Okay.
huge influence, huge. I still look at that guy and he's so
He's
cool.
still
He's
my
just
role
so
model.
great. Yeah, he's from the outside looking in. I don't know him personally, but from what we see, you're like, oh, that's a solid guy.
Yeah.
And even in the '90s, I was obsessed with Will Smith. I watched Fresh Prince, like, when they were new, they weren't rerun. I watched him on. He was becoming like this huge movie star. He did a movie called Independence Day, which is like one of his first real big blockbuster movies. He
Yeah.
was a Marine in that movie. He was a Marine pilot in that movie. And
What?
right after that movie came out, I remember that was one of the first times I said, I'm going to be a Marine, just because Will Smith was a Marine. And I think that I wouldn't say that because it would be like 7 or so years later by the time I would be like committing to it.
Yeah, you were
but
in
I
like
think
fifth
that
grade when you saw that movie.
yeah, I was like, exactly. Yeah. I was like in 5th, 6th grade. And so I guess that's not that long, 6 years later or something, but
But
I
in a
remember
kid,
thinking
that's
about
half
it.
your life, right? That's a
Right.
lot.
Yeah, exactly. That definitely had an influence on me. I should
Okay,
send
but
those
why?
stuff.
Okay, let's explore that. I think that's super interesting. I mean, it wasn't just because Will Smith is a cool dude. Like, what was it about him being a Marine that you were like, that's the kind of man I want to be?
Let's see if I remember the movie correctly. I mean, he kind of like he's one of the he's one of the main characters, and he's just like saving the day. And I think part of that was I think I had a lot to prove at that early age. I definitely felt like I had a lot to prove. I was in band, and I wanted to be like the best trumpet player, and I remember I was in 5th grade when I started playing the trumpet, and I remember to join the jazz band, you had to be a 6th grader. And I was like, what? You just have to be a different age to just. So I like practiced so much. And in fifth grade, I was invited to join the jazz band, and I felt like I was achieving so much just because I like broke down that rule.
You broke down that rule with your like
Yeah,
sheer will and talent.
correct. And I remember the sixth graders were not having that. They were pissed that this fifth grader wasn't good enough to join the jazz band when, you know, what the rules were you had to be in sixth grade. And so I think I was just constantly having to show that I was valued, or I was good enough, or I was worth it from an early age. I think, I don't know, I'm the middle child, so maybe that has something to do with it too.
Same, middle.
Yeah, so yeah. I don't know. My therapist said something about that in the past. Like, I never resonated.
You did say something interesting before we started the show about your work ethic, right? And how for you, even if you don't have a task list that day, like you want to work down a list of feeling like you accomplished something, and that being how you like define your worth.
Correct. Yeah, that is something that I do recognize, and I do know that to some degree can be unhealthy. If you're just like working just because you can't take a break. I know that's something that I've had to work on, not in a sense where I feel like it was a bad idea, but there is overworking, and you can, that can tear you down and wear you down, and not knowing how to take a break. There was a time where I felt like I didn't know how to take a vacation. Like I didn't know how to just sit by a pool and just be with my thoughts. Like I felt like I had to go do something. And I remember,
honestly, until you met your wife, I felt like that was 100% how you were. Like, I don't think there was a day I didn't see you at Ironsmith, which says a lot about me that I was at Ironsmith every day, but also so
It's true. That's true. Right before I met my wife, I think I was working on, I had recognized that I felt like it was an issue, that I didn't know how to just be with my thoughts and stop, just take a damn break. And so, yeah, working on that definitely changed my life. I think finding the balance was more what I was able to discover, was how to find balance in that. Yeah.
It's interesting though, because I feel like your being there every day was one of the things that helped to build that community around Ironsmith, right? Like Ironsmith is like my cheers. I go in there, I feel like everybody knows me, or at least my dog.
Yeah.
But a lot of people feel the same way, and we all look for that place that we feel like we belong. And just even as you're talking, I feel like your personality is so much a part of that space. Like every square inch of Ironsmith is a collab. It's showcasing someone who's working, right? Like let's talk about Ironsmith a little bit. And really now I'm seeing how much this company is you, right? Like so behind Matt, if you were to move his shoulder, you would see that that's where he does his roasting. Yeah.
Oh yeah, right here.
Yeah, right behind him. There you go. So you can see Matt standing there most days roasting the beans. It smells phenomenal blocks away from the cafe. The bar is just behind him. The words roast right above. The name Ironsmith comes from one of your original partners, right? Did a lot of the ironwork of this space. I think there's something.
Yeah.
You walk in and you feel that every piece in there is intentional and has been touched, right? Like the chairs, the tables, the bar, handmade by people who work there, right? And the photos on the wall, right? That Matt's facing right now, by Kai, who works with you guys, does a lot of your media, and showcasing the farmers that you guys work with. So how intentional has that been for you? How much of it is just like because you're bootstrapping and this is what it is to start up your own business when you're a young dude? And how much of it is because you really did want to build this from the ground up?
The majority of everything we've done is like, it's intentional, but it's also organic in its process of discovering. When I first started this, I didn't know I was going to put these photos, I was like, we're going to have these photos of these farmers from Ethiopia one day. it was more of like being present and realizing we could do this. We could put these photos up, and then we did it. So a lot of it, there's a little bit of planning involved, but I will admit the majority of what Ironsmith had been up until even, till now, has been a little reactive. And we're going, well, we have this opportunity. Let's do this, or let's build this here because that looks better. The planning of it, of course, there was some planning when we first started. Me and my original partner Raul, there's tons that we had planned, but what it is now is nowhere near what I probably envisioned. Like I look at my initial business proposal, like that would just write just what I thought Ironsmith would be. It's still a coffee shop. I still roast coffee. I still search for coffee in different parts of the world. But internally, of what the machine of what it is now, it's become something that I could have never planned for. Not in a great way. And like what you were saying, like it's become this hub. I don't know if I intentionally wanted it to be like this hub. It wasn't even like the main driving force. I just wanted to make really good coffee all the time. And I think there was these side products that came of that, and being a community hub is one of those things, but I guess I was playing for that subconsciously because as there's tons of outlets.
Yeah.
If I didn't want it to be a hub, I probably wouldn't have put these outlets. I would have been, if I intentionally didn't want it to be a hub, I wouldn't have thought about that. Because I did. I was like, oh, these outlets with these USB plugs is cool. And so, to some degree that attracted people who wanted to work here. But I think there was a lot of almost indirect, accidental byproducts of each action that I took.
But I can't help but feel like that's a mirror again of like you and your ethos and your values, right? Like when you walk into Ironsmith, there's the whole space is like the size of my living room, right? It's not a huge space, but you do a lot of it. Yeah. One bar that runs along the wall, 2 tables in the back, and a couple in the front. That's it. But there are like outlets every 3 feet, right? So every single, when you walk in, I feel like it sends that subconscious message to you. This is a place that can work. Like I remember after the first time I walked in, my first thought was like, oh, I can come back here and work, right?
Correct.
So I can't help but feel like that, and it felt like a place too that I would be comfortable working, and still being social, right? So I can't help but feel like that your values translated into the physical space and the layout, whether you meant it or not,
Right.
You've done a lot of different things with that space, right?
Yeah, for sure. I 100% agree.
And it has good Wi-Fi. So that's something you
I would say the majority of the time it has pretty good Wi-Fi. Sometimes it may not, but
sometimes there's a lot of people in there. So
yeah, it sucks up the bandwidth.
Okay, so when you first opened it, tell me about like your first few collabs and some of the other projects you've been working on. So, one of the things that I've noticed with you is that you're always looking for ways to like partner with everyone. You're always open to partner, right?
Yeah.
So one that I remember mostly for its deliciousness, but also because I felt like it was an incredible story of like productive collaboration was with Wayfair, right? Which is now a bakery in Bird Rock. But how did that come to be? Like that seemed like a story of community building.
Correct. So the way that happened was I had a barista who was working for me. Her name was Jessica, and she came out of, she used to work in LA, and she used to work at a few at these coffee shops in LA that are really well known. And so naturally, she had this circle of friends that were just in the food industry. Let's put it that way: food, cafe, coffee scene. So, anyways, one of her best friends, and still is one of her best friends, was Crystal, the proprietor of Wayfair. So Jessica would tell me, it's like, oh, I have a friend. She works up in San Francisco right now. She helped open up a few bakeries in LA. She works at Tartine in San Francisco right now, and she's looking to do her own thing. And we would just,
if you don't know, Tartine is probably like, I have 2 Tartine cookbooks in my kitchen right now. Tartine is one of like the preeminent bakeries in the world, not just San Francisco.
Yeah, ever in the world. Yeah, if you don't know Tartine, then you're missing out. So anyway, so that it was just a conversation. I would talk to her, or Jessica, who had worked as a barista at Ironsmith. We would talk, and then she eventually connected me with Crystal, because she was looking to open up her own business. At this point, anywhere, I think. And she was like, San Diego sounds cool. I think she thought about Santa Barbara. I think she wasn't looking at LA just because she just didn't want to do the LA scene. And so I had talked to her, and I think it was just more of a conversation of asking like how the baking industry was, or what the coffee industry was like in San Diego. And me had just opened up a business like 2 or 3 years prior. I was like, yeah, I think, there's only a handful of bakeries. And I think for most of us in San Diego, if we're looking for super high quality baked goods, or bread, we think about Prager Brothers.
Right.
And so I remember telling her, I was like, I just know Prager Brothers. There's tons of other bakeries that I won't name, but if I had to say who's quality, then Prager Brothers. And I was like, oh, that's pretty much it. So San Diego looks good. And so she came down to San Diego, and I think she just fell in love with it, because I think she just loved the beach scene. She told me, she's like, I just want to open up a bakery by the ocean. That was like her goal. She just wanted to make bread. And she came down. Yeah, she came down to San Diego, and I think she just, if we're talking about like a hustle and a work ethic, Crystal is one of those people as well. And she came down to San Diego with very little, like physically, like she had maybe one bag, and she's like, cool, I'm here. And within 6 months, she got going, and one of the first things we did was do a pop-up at Ironsmith, because one of the challenges was like, where do we start? Because she was trying to figure out where a bakery could go, and that has its own challenges and its own sort of workflow, and how to process, like how to get a lease, how to or buy a building. That was its own thing. But to get the ball rolling, we decided to do a pop-up at Ironsmith on Sundays. And that was for
so how did that decision come to be? Like, was this something that was organic conversations? Is this something that was your idea? Like, did you see the opportunity?
It's a good question, because I don't remember at this point. I think it was like, I think I knew I wanted better pastries, first of all. Like, I was like, at Ironsmith, we need better, like just in general, like in San Diego, I was like, there's not really like that go-to. It might be like, at least maybe I didn't know of any, but I didn't know where to get really high quality pastries like you could at Tartine. So that was one. And then the second one was, as a friend, I was like, more so just as a friend, I was like, hey, let's just work together to get this rolling, just to get you like baking, and then we can figure I don't know, get some momentum from there. And that was really it. Mostly because I wanted really good pastries and I wanted to be that shop that was serving really good pastries. That was really it. That was like, I don't remember if it was like her coming up with the idea, or both of us just chit chatting, but that's how it started. And then that was one Sunday, and I think, if I remember correctly, I remember she just wanted, she really wanted to just bake bread. Like, her focus was just sourdough bread and variants of it. She just wanted to do that. And so I think when we first started, she had a few loaves of bread, like some cookies and biscuits. She wasn't even making croissants, just because she didn't have a way to laminate the croissant at that point. She was just getting gone. So that's how it started, and it grew from there. It was all her. She was the one hustling, and I was just happy to get
her. It was a critical collaboration with you guys at Ironsmith. Like, I remember that pop-up. There'd be lines like out the door and down.
So long.
Yeah. But what I love about that is like how truly collaborative. You said like it was me helping out a friend, but it was a friend that you met and made specifically with the intention of, this is someone who's looking for an opportunity to bake, and how that formed a friendship for you, right? Like, again, coming back to that work ethic, and that hustle, like how that seems to be a bonding driver for you. And how many of so this is a personal question, how many of your relationships are non-objective? How many people are you friends with who you don't work with them, have never partnered with them, have never pulled them into the cafe, have never used your cafe or your resources to help them with a project? How many friends do you have that you have never worked with in any capacity?
How many of my friends are that? Probably. I mean, at some point, yeah, everyone gets wrapped up in the Ironsmith. In some form. It's the black hole that'll just suck you in.
I don't know if it's a black hole, right? This is what I'm saying. It takes one to know one. If I love you, I will work with you. Like, this is how I feel. It's like, for me, the greatest love I can show someone is to like build something with them or create something with them, you know?
That's a good question. Yeah, everyone that I know in my life currently, minus, you know, some friends that I grew up with, but everyone, at least in San Diego, that I am like tight with, there's some form of fashion revolves around the shop, the brand of Ironsmith, you know, coffee, whatever. Yeah, some people are more like, some of my friends are a little bit more like coffee purists. So it's coffee that gravitated towards this, and then someone like yourself, you know, I know through the shop organically, and now we're friends, and you know, you drop me off food for me and my family now, you know, stuff like that. So yeah, everyone of some form of fashion in my life is part of Ironsmith.
That's amazing. And I feel like it's not just the work ethic. Like, what I love about Ironsmith is that everything you guys do mirrors excellence, right? Like, there's nothing that you're doing just because you're like, we have to do this, it's a basic, whatever. Like, when you're talking about your pastries and how that collab involves someone from Tartine, which is now, you know, one of the most successful bakeries in San Diego, right? They got written up in the New York Times, Wayfair, and how that wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for your collab, because she saw in you the same like dedication to excellence and hustle that she sees in herself, you know. And I'm thinking about, so Dustin, who we had on the show 2 weeks ago, Dustin Sousley, a young filmmaker and storyteller. I know him through Ironsmith as well, right? And he's gotten jobs through Ironsmith. And when you see Dustin, sure, he's at the coffee shop, but he's working hard every day that he's there, and using that as one of the many places to both work and socialize with other people. You know, I feel like in some ways you're achieving what a lot of these co-working spaces are looking to do, which is bringing people together literally at the table who want to collaborate and want to work hard. And it's interesting to me because that's not why you go to a coffee shop, right? You go there to relax, to get a drink, to get out of your house. And yet you've managed to create this space that pulls in a lot of people just like that. Okay, so tell me then some of these other locations. So you guys have expanded you've only been open for 5.5 years. What was the growth of Ironsmith? Because you've so you did the Wayfair collab. You participated with them for a while in that space, right? Like, helped them kind of like get established a little bit.
Yeah. Starting off, you know, her opening up the bakery, it was, I know, you know, she was always going to do coffee. There's just, I don't know if there was even a question.
Coffee. Yeah.
So getting started with that, she wanted to focus on her new business and baking. And so we agreed to help run the coffee side of it for a year. And then, you know, there was never really like a hard plan. It was like, if it made sense to keep going, cool. But if not, she would take over and run it herself. So that first year was us running the coffee bar is Ironsmith. And that way we could focus on the coffee and she could focus on her new business and baking. And then after the year, we would sort of look back and see what challenges there were. And if not, if there was enough like momentum for her to take over, then she would do it. And that's what we agreed on. So she runs internally her own coffee bar now. And she does a phenomenal job. So we were there to help out, to get going, to get started.
And so supportive too of other people as they're starting their own ventures, like not threatened, not territorial, like how that really fosters, like, again, giving space, literally.
Giving space. Give the space. Yeah. I think that comes with like respect for, you know, I totally respect Crystal and what she does. And it was almost just like I like being around her because she does work hard. And I noticed that from the very beginning too. And I was like, I just want to be associated with Crystal because she's such a hard worker, and I know her attention to quality was so high. So even just being mentioned in the same sentence is, an honor.
That's amazing. No, I love that drives, like, that element of respect for you, takes away what would awesome impede usually keep us from collaborating.
Right. Yeah.
That feeling of being threatened, like, I don't want another baker or coffee shop on the block. And yet instead you're fostering that and creating, again, this like community of excellence here in San Diego around coffee and food roasters. So at the Bella Vista, right, with Amanda, I see so many parallels between the two of you, right? Amanda, again, workaholic, commitment to excellence. Their recipes, they're much more food and cafe. They're not doing roasters, right? And they're open late. But what I see in Amanda is the same thing that I see in you, and it's the same thing that I love, which is both that, like, how mutual respect of shared values drives this connection, and how Amanda draws all of these people around her. The Bella Vista is much more that like biotech brain trust, right? Trust, just some of it from the product of where it is, and I think some of it from the product of Amanda's interests, right? Like Amanda loves people who are creating new technologies on the forefront of shaping like that future experience for us, who are discovering and working deep in the details. And I see with you drawing again that same group of people who are hustling, right? Like everyone who's hanging out at Ironsmith has a number of different projects that they're going on all the time and can always find room for one more.
Right. That's true. It's like, reminds me of that statement where it's like, if you want something done, you ask a busy person.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a momentum. Like, it's just, the hardest part is just getting started. But yeah, everyone that does come in here, including yourself, and like everyone has something going on, and that's infectious to me too. I mean, I see what other people are doing and what they're working on in here, and it's motivating because I think just progress and achieving certain goals is infectious, whether it's in the same industry or not. It's why I love sports. I love basketball, and like just watching sports like motivates me just because it's so cool to me, and achieving goals. And so yeah, everything is infectious.
So as you're playing on this idea of infection, so you've been expanding a lot the last 2 years. You were with the Rising Co. in Oceanside for a little bit. Well, so I know you're not with them anymore, and everything's it is up in the air. In the time that you were there, what I was struck by in the times that I would go there was how it felt like everyone who was in that space and who was shopping in that space had a tie back to Ironsmith somehow. So what was the growth of that space, and how did it come to be?
We were, I would say I am always open to doing more. So when I'm constantly in that space where I'm like, yeah, I'm willing to do it. I wasn't actively looking for another shop, but I'm always open to idea if the opportunity sounds great. So we were approached and we were asked if that would be a space that we wanted to take a look at. And it's interesting because at that time I was, I guess, much more open. I was like, it'd be cool to do something up north, like Oceanside or maybe Carlsbad. And I was already toying with that idea. And then we were approached by the owners and founders of Rising Co. So we took a look at that building, and we just, Oceanside is such a rad spot now. Yeah. It always has been, but much more now. There's so much momentum happening up there. And so we were approached to look at it, and we decided, it was super grassroots, and super bootstrapped. Like, that's why we liked the founders of Rising Co. because they were people we could relate to as well. They're just working hard. They all owned their own businesses, and they wanted to make something happen. And so it felt great, and that's why we decided to roll with it initially and do a pop-up there and see what that could become, because we've been approached plenty of times by other people, and I honestly can't even remember names anymore, but they always felt, I always felt like some sort of distance with some people because either they came from a very large amounts of money, and it was hard to relate because when you have that kind of money, you can just kind of make things happen. Whereas for us, we're like, we got to build it. Like it's gonna take us some time. But with the Rising Code, it was great because they were such hardworking people, and so it just felt like a great harmony, you know. So that's how that happened.
Again, right? Like how hustle attracts hustle. And this
Yeah,
idea
for
of
sure.
like that personal touch point of building it yourself somehow translates into like almost like an emotional intimacy in the space. You
Yeah,
know, like I
no, for
remember
sure.
going there too,
Yeah,
and it had the same sort of like home there-ness, you know, of
right.
like
Yeah,
actually being a place that Ironsmith has, even though it was a totally different
correct.
layout. You know, for a while it was pretty bootstrap, you know, and
It was hella bootstrap. Yeah, it was hella bootstrap. We took material. Justin and myself, we took like what we could, pieces of wood that we could find, and just like what can we do with this? And I think part of that is the attraction to like the creation process.
uh-huh.
We just, if you like creating things, whether it's digitally or physically, I just love creating as well, and so that was a product of that, and that's why it was so bootstrapped, just because we wanted it to be.
I love that. The creating something. How is that similar to how roasting is? Taking a bean
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
right. That
to something?
Yeah, it's a little bit of wanting to control everything. It's like I knew I wanted to be able to get coffee and have my hand in the process every step of the way. And I did at one point. I think I thought about like, what if I got coffee roasted by somebody else? And I immediately, um, dismissed that notion just because I was like, well, I don't have control over that, so I need to control it. So that's why I just love creating and controlling and having my hand in every step of the process.
Literally, like you touch every bean basically that comes through your place from when it's at the
Yeah,
farm till it's here, right?
the only thing that I don't do, and I like still think about like, what if I did do that? Is farm. Is like actually farm the coffee and grow it. That's the only step of the process that I don't have any control in. And I do think about it.
So what's your process then for selecting the farms that you do work with?
um, the process is really locating certain. Well, I work with the broker still. The brokers for the company or person that does um, procuring the coffee from the farmer and then basically bringing it into the country. So working with these specific brokers who have a network of farmers that they work with. So
Mhm.
first, it's working with a broker who I trust in their business ethos and how they run their business and where they're procuring coffee. And once that relationship is established, then it opens me up to a network of farms and regions in certain countries that I know just because I work with these specific brokers, I trust in their work ethic and how they're paying the farmers. So there's still a little bit of there's a I guess there's a
Yeah.
middleman that I still have to work with. I'm
Right.
not as big as some coffee shops. I can go directly to the farmer and there's a suitcase of money here and give me your coffee. It doesn't necessarily work that way. But I do work with these brokers and I travel to certain countries and meet the farmers that they work with. So firsthand, I get to see the land that they work in, the conditions that they work in, and more
Why is
importantly, the quality of coffee.
why would you take on that cost and that time, especially
Well,
given how hard you work? Like why do you choose to do that?
I think it's important for the storytelling of it, to be able to go to where your most basic and raw ingredient is created. I think for instance, if I was in the retail business, I made t-shirts, I probably would be going to the factories that the shirts are made in, right? Like some of the best companies that I know and support all have sort of that same business model. Like they know where their raw ingredients come from. It's important to know and
Yeah.
control either that cost and that quality. And so for me, it was the same thing. I was like, if coffee is my main thing, I have to go see where the coffee is grown for my own eyes be able to be like, this is where this is where, the most basic ingredient. And, for us, it translates into making a latte. And if we're making money off of that, it's sustaining my life because I pay myself to live. And it's like, to not know where your products come from. I just don't know if I could run a business that way. So at the very least, I can go there and see the farmers and shake their hand, because, farmers they say on average, they spend about 2,000 hours of labor growing coffee before it gets to me as a coffee roaster, right? So think about that. The farmer spends 2,000 hours worth of labor. And then it gets to me, and say I roast the coffee. It takes me about 12 to 15 minutes. Cool. I've spent 12, 15 minutes with this coffee. And then once the barista makes it, it takes them like a minute to make a cup of coffee. So look at it that way. The farmer spends the most of the time with his coffee. Like, everyone else after that is just trying not to mess it up. So the farmer spends the most time growing this product that in the end, the barista usually gets the credit for, but they spend the least amount of time with the actual product. So it's just interesting to think about it that way. And so once I realized that, I was like, oh, I gotta go meet these guys, just at least know who they're supporting, because they're supporting us. If they're not doing all the work that they're doing, there's no product for us in terms of quality. There's no quality product for us to obtain and promote. We like to promote that we have super high quality coffee. And if that wasn't true, then it would be a shame, to be promoting that. And so I had to go meet these guys and women. Tons of women that work in coffee. Yeah, tons of women that work in coffee.
And it comes back to that respect for excellence that you have, but I love how you're pulling all of these people into the process, right? That you're really expanding this venture that you're on, and almost entirely eliminating your ego, right? You're an award-winning roaster. You're nationally recognized, right? Ironsmith has done really well on a national and international level, just in terms of the pure roasting that you do. So let's not diminish that the 12 to 14 minutes that you spend with the bean transform it, right? Entirely. And that you are exceptional, verifiably, objectively exceptional at what you do with that, right?
Thank you.
Well, it's not me giving you a compliment. There's evidence to support what I'm saying. There's a panel of judges who have decided this as well. And so it's, even as you're talking about it though, I see that ego almost doesn't even exist outside of your respect for seeing the work someone else is doing, right? And bringing them into the process. When you walk into Ironsmith, you see the bags of that the beans came in, right? The burlap sacks, you see the photos on the wall. I feel a part of that process end to end. It kind of reminds me of the ways that, when you talk about brands, Patagonia does a really good job with really showcasing who their suppliers are and making that part of their culture. Right. So that when you're buying from Patagonia, you not only have the transparency of their ethical practices, but you feel like the products that you're buying into are tied into this larger identity and culture and community, right?
Right.
And that's the feeling at Ironsmith is in a way it feels very global when you're there, even though it's the most hyper local spot in Encinitas.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, it's definitely an international, global production that is required for this to operate.
Yeah, at just that small level. Okay, so what's next for you guys? What is Matt open to now? What are you working on?
So it's interesting after all this, we're still in a pandemic. Things are still different, but amidst all that, we were able to stay open. We just stayed open, ran super lean. And with that being said, we were able to sort of declutter is the word I would use, but it's allowed me to see the shop in a different light, and it's allowed me to make room for improvement for the shop, because it's easy to have a shop and you just run it day to day, and to make space to want to improve that requires space mentally and emotionally to be able to do that on top of your daily life and your responsibilities. So because of the COVID pandemic, we had to run shorter hours, and that's one variable. The shorter hours has allowed me more time in the day to look at the business from just purely a business standpoint and what I wanted it to be. So there's going to be a lot of improvement, like just even physical improvements in Ironsmith 1, which is, the first shop, which is interesting because like growth in business doesn't always mean opening up more shops.
Okay, yeah.
Like physical spaces. So I've made time and space to look at this shop and go, what can I improve here? Because this is like my number one. This is the baby. This is everything. And so you'll see a lot of improvements internally, just even the facade of the building internally. Little things like well, not little things, but I'm going to rebuild the entire bar.
Wow.
So things like that, because the bar for us was a product of what Matt, myself and Raul thought a coffee shop should look like before we ever worked in coffee, right? So imagine given that responsibility of anything. We're like, hey, we want you to design something, but you have no experience in it. Cool, daunting task. So the bar right now is a product of that mindset. And after 5-6 years, I've learned quite a bit of just flow. And so redesigning the bar with this new mindset is important to me, because I don't know, 5 years is a good milestone to have in anything, business. Absolutely. Working in a job for 5 years, like it's a great milestone to have. So I've learned quite a bit.
I think it's interesting that Ironsmith, that being an Ironsmith for so many of the people in your community is the space that we need to be able to like step out of what we're normally doing and be open to like, okay, how can I improve? What else can I work on? And it's like this natural space for like collaboration, just sort of like become spontaneously inspired, right? And it was actually for you getting out of the space that allowed you to start thinking about what are the things you want to improve. Okay, so physical improvements in Ironsmith in general.
Yep.
What else? What else are you working on? Any new pop-ups?
We're totally
talking about a truck for a long time.
Yeah, we actually, I got this van, which was, I got it right before the pandemic happened, but I got a new van for the shop, just for delivering coffee. And so that's going to be worked on. We're going to wrap it, brand it completely. We're rebuilding the website completely also. So literally in every front, the physical, and then our digital aspect, we're not rebranding, but we're refreshing the website completely, like recoding it from scratch, because we realized, our current website is limited based on the template that we have. And most people who are starting off, you go wherever on Shopify or Squarespace and you get a template, cool, there's your template, and build it from there. But after about 3-4 years, we realized there were some limitations with the template. And there's a lot of things that we want to do that we're restricted by based on this template. So we're recoding it from scratch and building a new website with a new vision in mind, much similar to how I'm rebuilding the bar. If there's this new vision and we know that we need to do it from scratch and bootstrap it and get it going and rebuild it and have a new life refresh.
So this focus on flow, and the website, is it meant to be more engaging, more online shopping?
Correct.
Yeah.
There's definitely more engaging. Some of you could probably list off some of the best companies that you like to buy products from, right? And if you go to their websites, there's a lot of intention in their websites, right? They have it intentionally built for your buying pleasure or your engagement. And so some of the best companies that I love to support have put a lot of intention in all aspects of their business, their website being one of them. And so I think for us, we realized that's something that we wanted to put a lot of intention towards too, because there's limitations to the ones that the template that we first had. So we wanted to make sure that we were aligning every aspect of our business from physical to our digital side with that same intention.
Well, I'm excited. I'm pleased and not at all surprised to see that you guys have made it through this economic slowdown and the COVID quarantine. That's both like a testament to your hustle and I think the dedication of the community that supports you. That you succeeded. And I'm really excited to see how you go from something that maybe was very organic, right? And maybe some of these subconscious sort of nascent thoughts around what you were creating. And now as you guys have matured, both like you as an adult maturing from a, you know, newly out of the Marines, 20 something who started this place to now a husband and father, and trying to think about what that intention looks like with your space and with Ironsmith and next step. So
I'm curious too.
So if people want to get involved, or if they want to stop by, what are the best ways? Where should they find you?
I think the first and foremost is just come to the shop. You know, this is like our showroom. This is like where everything happens. Our roastery is here. We make our coffee here. Everything is here. So visiting our shop in Encinitas on the Coast Highway is first and foremost. And then digitally we're pretty active on our Instagram, on our social media. That's another spot that we like to promote a lot of our information. And on our website, every night I need to get better at it, but I write a lot of blogs that go on the website, just sort of like things that we're up to, some of our business practices. So digitally, website, social media, and then physically, definitely come to the shop.
Okay. So there you go, guys. Come to the shop, get some of the best coffee you can get in California. Meet Matt and the other crew there. Everyone who you're going to run into in Ironsmith has some sort of hustle, creative force in terms of what they're trying to envision in the world. And it's so great to have Matt, who's sort of like at the epicenter of this hub, here with me talking about it. I love getting to know a little bit more how ingrained this is in you and seeing how much of this space really is a reflection of you and your DNA. So thank you for creating that place for so many of us and for, you know, taking the time to share your experience and who you are with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Thanks for being a supporter of Ironsmith for so long.
All right. Well, I'm sure I'll see you later today. If you want to check out this segment, it'll be on the Bellevue TV on YouTube. We'll include links in the show. And then be sure to check out Matt at Ironsmith Coffee Roasters. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next Wednesday. There's some great programming with the rest of Bellevue TV this week. So check out our Facebook page for what that lineup is and how you can connect and engage. Thank you.
Bye.